Hey everybody, welcome to the Book Leads Impactful Books for Life and Leadership. I'm your series host and leadership performance coach, John Jaramillo. This podcast series is about getting to the books that have impacted the lives of the people in my network. And so these are great leads that I'll be having a conversation with to get to those books that have made the biggest impact on their life, their work, their businesses, whatever it may be. All those worlds intersect. And I have three categories of books that I cover in this series. The first category is when they're sharing a book with me that I haven't read. The second category is when we're covering a book we've both read, whether we read it specifically for the episode or read it in our past lives before the series. The third category is when I have the author and or publisher on to talk about the book, to put a face, to put a tone to it, to get that message out to the masses. And my guest today is Mimi Gonzalez. And Mimi is the founder and podcast host of griefsense, a platform and community exploring grief, mental health, and social impact. She's a LinkedIn creator, speaker, and community builder based in Hartford, Connecticut, passionate about storytelling that centers community care, identity, and rewriting the narrative for future generations. Mimi created griefsense after losing 36 loved ones, building the spaces for others she wished had existed when she was navigating those painful experiences herself. And in addition to podcasting, she supports and advises first-generation college students, partners with brands and workplaces on responsible marketing, mental health, well-being, and Gen Z inclusion. She's regularly invited to speak to organizations on building inclusion, inclusive, supportive cultures. And Mimi's a three-time alum of the University of Hartford, where I met her, and serves on the board of Hilliard College. Her work has been featured in Now This, Success Magazine, SHRM, The Atlantic, LinkedIn News, and many other platforms. And I've stayed in touch with Mimi since our work at the University of Hartford. I see what she's doing on LinkedIn. We're always touching base every once in a while just to see how things are going. I like what she's putting out there. I like that she's looking out for community. So I wanted to have her on for a conversation. Here we are. Mimi, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me. I'm so grateful. And yeah, it's so awesome how when, an experience back in the day just brings you, together all the time. It's the gift that keeps on giving. So I'm always going to be grateful for University of Hartford for connecting us and just happy that we stayed in touch.
Yeah, absolutely. It's crazy how this day and age, maybe you don't see somebody in a long time, but because of social media, but because of LinkedIn, you get to see what they're doing. It feels like you're interacting with them. It feels like you're sharing ideas with them. And we touch base through various groups every once in a while, but
Yeah.
it's incredible how you can keep tabs on what somebody's doing. You can appreciate their work. And I mean, I love one-on-one conversations, in-person meetings and whatnot, but it's incredible how much you can gauge what someone's up to, the difference they're trying to make just by what they're sharing out there in the world.
Yeah. And thanks for just keeping in touch with me and just, being part, recently we started that LinkedIn creators community, and that's just been really awesome for me, especially as we get booked and busy and we have family and we have all these obligations. It's just a really cool way, to your point, with social media, just still keeping tabs with people, staying connected when you can't meet one on one all the time, which that's definitely been my reality. So I'm just grateful for my community showing me grace and still being willing to just collaborate in really creative and different ways. And for me right now, LinkedIn is that place. It is that platform for people to connect with me the best way. But of course, unless you're like an OG writer in my life, like John Jaramillo, then yes, I will be on a podcast for you any day.
I appreciate that so much. And yeah, just one more comment on what people are putting out there. It is amazing when people are putting out great work.
Yeah.
In the past, it used to be so much about products, services. Obviously, a lot of that is still out there. A lot of people still do that, obviously.
Mhm.
But it's incredible when it has to do a lot with self-help, with dealing with grief, when it's building yourself up, when it's helping people get a job, build their resume, whatever it may be. It's not, most of us on there are selling something,
Yeah.
but you can tell when people are, it's like regardless of what you may or may not buy from me, this is the message I have for you. This is what I want to share with you.
Mm.
It really does come down to, I see you, I see what you're trying to do. Let me help you with that. Let's build up that community. So it's an amazing square, like that public square, to have instant access to.
Yeah, and to all of that, it definitely resonates with me so much differently now because Something I get pretty frequently is, oh, you can write about that on LinkedIn. Oh, I can't post about that on LinkedIn. Like, what? Like, I get these messages and DMs all of the time, and I still get the occasional, this is not professional. This is not for LinkedIn. And I'm here to bust that bubble because LinkedIn is changing. I think everything, the way we know it, is changing. And I think that has been a norm for us since COVID, right? Since the pandemic started, everything we know it has changed. And this is kind of our new normal, if you will.
Yeah.
And I just love the revolution that is LinkedIn right now, with people just being more human and sharing the human side of work. And we are all humans having a human experience. Like, for us to only talk about one dimension of our lives when we are multidimensional beings, I mean, it's just myopic, in my humble opinion. So I love how it's changing. I love how people are embracing their authentic voice and just bringing other people in for the conversation. Like, I'm here for it. I love it so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So maybe when it comes to you, who are you today? I read the bio, you shared some of the work you're doing, what's getting out there in terms of your writing and whatnot. But can you give me a breakdown of the different areas, some specific examples of the work that you're doing?
Yes, thank you. Thanks for asking that. I'm definitely of the thought leadership, if you will, of sharing who we are before we say what we do.
Yeah.
And who I am, I'm just a deep lover of life. I love to laugh. I love to listen to loud music. I love to dance.
Ah,
I love to read. I love to be in community. And I just love life. Life is fleeting, and we only have one life to live. So I just want to live radically present with deep belly laughs
mm.
and radical fun. So that is who I am at the core. And aside from that, as well as the amazing bio that you gave, I am really just, I said as I get older, I don't want to be doing the most because
What does
I
that mean?
doing the most, like doing everything under the sun to the point that you burn out and you don't have time to do anything else. But because I always get often like, Mimi, how do you do this? And how do you do that? Oh my gosh, how are you doing that? And I just really don't feel like I'm doing work or like mundane work, like I'm genuinely just doing things that are authentic expressions of my joy and my mental health and making my visions come to life while also helping other people's visions come to life. Like, that just
Yeah.
brings me so much joy. And whether that's working at the nonprofit that I work at, as a director of career development, helping first gen students, whether that's creating content on LinkedIn or on TikTok or Instagram, whether that's opening this coffee shop that I'm doing that I'll talk a little bit about shortly. Or my podcast, I just genuinely, it brings me so much joy and fun. And I think that is a testament to doing things that bring you enjoyment, because then it's not going to feel like work. So, yeah.
No, I get that because people are like, how do you have time to work a full-time job, have a side business, have 3 kids, and you're still doing this podcast?
Exactly. Like, literally the same can be said about you.
But and I tell people all it comes down to is that I really enjoy doing this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not work.
Hmm.
Admittedly, it can be tedious in terms
Yeah,
of setting everything up and getting I'm not gonna lie,
for
but
sure.
in the end, like, just the conversations that I have, I can't imagine giving that up. There have been moments where, okay, there's too much on the plate, I need to get rid of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like, "Okay, I'm not getting rid of this. I'm not getting rid of this. I'll see what else I can get off the plate." So, that all comes back to what you're saying about I've had so many conversations with people who are like, every day, there's no day that I'm working. This
Mm,
doesn't feel like work to me. This
yeah.
is who I am. When I wake up, this feels like breathing. It's just an extension of who I am. So, and that comes through. I think in most of what you share, that comes through that you're in it. Like, it's not just for the eyeballs, it's not just for the attention, but you can sense when somebody has that energy that they're trying to convey through the work that they're doing.
Mm, yeah. Wow. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, and I think it's just the word that comes to mind is flow. I've just been in this state of flow. And I do think that we have our seasons, right? We have ups and downs. And I literally had just came out of a season where I wasn't doing much just because of the other things that were happening in my life were calling me to do. So I needed to prioritize family and I needed to, handle those types of things. And grief and mental health. And so you kind of have to have that discernment and be able to make decisions when, okay, like I need to, prioritize other things.
Yeah.
But now that I've spent intentional time with that, now I can be like, okay, I'm in a state of flow. I can do this now. I can build this momentum and I'm locked in. It's such a great privilege to be locked in. And I'm sure I will have another divot again. And it's just kind of this cycle. But being in a state of flow is such a gift for real. So love it.
It is amazing. I've written about that in that state of flow. You can't describe it until you experience it. I think the best way that I've described it is that movie Old School and that debate scene where Will Ferrell's character is debating James Carville, and he's like the idiot in the biggest idiot in the movie. And then when it comes to him having to answer this question, it's like he gets possessed and he answers it from like a perfectly economic standpoint. And James Carville's like, I can't disagree with that. Like he's right. And he wins.
Mm,
And then when he comes out of it, he shakes his head. He's like, what happened? I blacked out.
mm.
That to me is what flow feels like. Like when I'm writing, I just get lost in it. You're like in a trance mode. You're
Wow.
getting energy from it. And you stand up energized. That's what I get when I'm sitting down with my guests here. Like when you stand up, you're excited, you're pumped. I pumps me up knowing that there's great human beings out there doing great work. So
Yeah.
when did you first start really thinking about that idea of flow for you and what that feeling is for you? When did
Mm,
that really become a realization that this is a different kind of sensation?
mm. Well, I do have a word for it, and I call it grief sense, which is really the name of my business, but it's more than that. It's my way of life, is what I call grief sense, and it has multiple meanings, multiple definitions. Um, but core to who I am, and you mentioned it in my bio. I have lost 36 people who have passed away in my life. I just turned 29, so that's a lot. That's a lot of loss, and
Yeah.
I realized that I experience a lot of loss by my mid 20s than more people do in a span of a lifetime. And I'm not alone in thinking that I know more loss is coming. I'm still very young, but with that, I just, at a certain point in life, you're presented a certain deck of cards, and you're like, okay, am I going to let this break me? Am I going to let this make me? Like, what am I going to do? What am I being called to do right now? And when you just experience that back to back to back tragedy, of course you're going to have those moments where you're like, I don't even want to be here anymore, because how can one human or one little heart take, you know? Um, but I just somehow found this flow feeling, this inner sixth sense, this intuition, if you will, to be creative and to just channel this pain into my purpose, to bring other people along for the ride with me. And similar to you, like when I'm podcasting, I could be having like the hardest day of my life. Or just like a really tough moment. I'm stressed. Maybe I didn't get a lot of sleep that day or a lot of family obligations, whatever it is, right? But when I'm podcasting, like to that point, like something just takes over my brain. It's like, all right, we're locked in. Let's go. And it just I don't know. I feel like that is part of that grief sense feeling. But another dimension of grief sense as well is just having this unwavering devotion to living life as a privilege. Because, like I said, life is fleeting, and I don't care what anyone else's rules are. I don't care what, like, literally, I was always that person. I didn't follow everyone else's rules. Like, making my rules meant I would have to probably break someone else's rules. Like, I don't live my life according to other people. And you can see that in various, milestones in my life, college, going to corporate, quitting corporate, starting my own business, doing all of the things, being a podcaster. Um, And I think it's just that consistent flow, that grief sense that keeps me going. So, yeah.
So when it comes to your work, the different parts that I talked about, marketing, mental health and well-being, Gen Z inclusion, can you give me just a sense, a little bit of each of those in the work that you do for clients, for companies, whoever it may be, responsible marketing, mental health and well-being, the Gen Z inclusion?
Yeah, so all of it definitely goes hand in hand. And I will say definitely stems from my journey. I kind of just want to walk you through a little bit of my life and journey to how I've been able to even do this. So I am an activist and organizer at heart. That's really what started my entire journey. So when all of my formative losses started happening, like when I was a teenager, for example, I lost 5 people in 1 year and my dog, so 6 beings in 1 year in my junior year of high school. Like what? I'm supposed to have junior prom. I'm supposed to be graduating soon. I'm applying for college. Like that was a really traumatic experience. But what I ended up doing was I started community organizing around suicide prevention and just raising awareness about these issues. Well, long story short, that kind of kick-started my journey of public speaking and building community with people. And I definitely owe that to my high school principal because he would always encourage me to speak in front of the school to my fellow peers and students. So shout out to Dr. Slater for that. But then in college, that's where my creative side, I guess, really started kicking in. I would host open mics, raising awareness about these different social issues: racism, domestic violence, suicide prevention, disability inclusion, all of the things. And getting to do that through music and poetry and community building. So that really kind of kickstarted my communication side of myself, marketing. I always was creating flyers and spreading the word and hosting events, right? And then after college, well, let me backtrack a little bit. In college, I did get my master's degree. We have the same degree in organizational psychology,
What'd you do for undergraduate?
psychology and gender studies.
Okay. Okay.
And then I really thought I was going to be a military psychologist. I don't know why. That's what in my head, I thought I was going to be. I just had this obsession with how people with PTSD behave differently and how you can have a certain diagnosis from different traumatic experiences. So mine was loss and seeing people die in front of me, like that triggered my PTSD. But then how a veteran or someone who experienced, abuse, like, right, just different forms of trauma can lead to that diagnosis. So in the organizational psychology program at University of Hartford, they would bring different career experts of different backgrounds to kind of talk to us. And I got to meet a military psychologist one day, and he explained his day to day and his career. And I was like, yeah, maybe I don't want to do that. Because he shared, sometimes you would deploy and you would have to be in these like really intense living conditions, depending on the country that you were in. So it's
Yeah.
like, oh, maybe I don't want to do that. So then I met an organizational psychologist. And the way it was explained to us was, well, you know how a therapist will have a patient or a client, and you have to, obviously, they're dealing with some issues, and you have to diagnose them. After you diagnose them, you come up with a treatment plan. And they're saying, well, as an organizational psychologist, your client or your patient is a workplace or is an organization. And that to me just like blew my mind. I was like, what? Like, and that was kind of like my aha moment, like, okay, this is a direction I want to go. And organizational psychology kind of like bridges those worlds of business, of communications, of marketing. Like it's a one-stop shop of HR,
Mm.
right? Everything. And so that's where I felt like I obviously have a lot of different passions, and this is a degree that's going to be able to be my catalyst in doing it all. So in corporate, did all of the things. I did about 8 years in corporate. I've worked in HR, talent, DE&I, and really kind of bringing these formative experience of mine to the forefront. activism, creativity, writing, all of the things. But I experienced a lot of the isms in corporate, right? A lot of ageism, a lot of racism, a lot of sexism, everything. And it kind of got to the point where there were things happening in corporate that I just didn't agree with, or my soul just didn't feel good. Like I was internally getting sick. Like I felt myself being sick. And I think the definition, or the term sick and tired, took on a whole new meaning for me working in corporate. So left corporate, decided to open up my own consulting practice. And really, this is where I wanted to help brands and workplaces um, connect with younger talent better, how to support them and be successful. Because I'm someone who's always been like the youngest person in the room, first, Afro Latina in the room, who people didn't know what to do with me. They're like, how does this person have so much experience at such a young age? And, a lot of times that helped me, that was a catapult to a lot of
Mhm.
different amazing experiences, but it also set me up for failure in a lot of ways where leaders just didn't know what to do with me. And so that kind of became, wow, this is what I want to do. I want to have my clients or my patients be workplaces or HR leaders or CEOs who want to learn how to connect with the younger generation better, which again will just make the workplace a better place in general.
Yeah.
So kind of kicked off some of the Gen Z consulting, as well as the marketing work that's really more so helping leaders with inclusive storytelling. And that definitely comes from my anti-racism activism background and working in DE&I. I was a ghostwriter basically as a chief of staff for the chief diversity officer. So I was writing all of our communications that would be external facing or internal facing, on how to just write inclusively. And I love that. So these are all just different dimensions of what I'm doing now. But I would definitely say my favorite thing is griefsense and podcasting, interviewing other young people or grievers that have experienced similar experiences to me.
So when it comes to Grief Sense, the podcast, how did that come about? Obviously, you know the story, know all your loss. But then what was really the moment where it clicked in that you wanted to take the podcasting route and create that space for people to share their stories with you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say probably simultaneously is when I started my consulting business. Like literally the day I put my resignation in to my corporate job, I was like, no, I'm doing something different. And so I always knew like grief sense was brewing within me for a really long time. And grief sense has been a term that I've given this inner intuition since I was younger, but I just didn't know what I was going to do with it. And when I was a kid, this is related but not related, but it's related. I had this unhealthy obsession with Scott Haney, which in Connecticut is very
Who
local.
does it? Who does it?
Like I loved Scott Haney, and then one day he got to come to my school. I think I was in first grade, and I was like, that was like the best day of my life as a first grader. We got to take a picture and everything, and I just loved how he was always smiling. He was on TV, he was reporting, he got to interview other people, and I'm like, that's what I want to do. Like that's one of the many things I wanted to do. And so that's always kind of been on the back of my mind. And I'm like, wow, it's so wild that now, of course, I have a podcast. I get to interview people. I get to smile on TV or whatever. But it's just really that deep exploration and curiosity to want to learn, how are people navigating life after loss? Like, this is so debilitating. It's so like, I can't even tell you how I'm here today. Literally,
Yeah.
yesterday was my best friend's birthday. She would have turned 31 years old. This Thursday is my grandmother's birthday. I'm just, every month there's some death anniversary or milestone. I'm just reminded by my loss every single day. And so it can be really debilitating. And so it's just fascinating to me to meet other people who have just found a way to not just survive, but channel this pain into being radically happy and present and just creating. So yeah, I'm just really fascinated with that idea, and the podcast allows me to do that. But of course, it's growing in so many surprising and unexpected ways. So I think the key is just being open, open to seeing how life is going to evolve and bring you people in your life to collaborate with and stuff. So yeah.
So how else, aside from the work you're doing, that state of flow that you get into, the podcast, obviously, how else are you taking care of yourself? What is
Yeah.
your self-care?
That is a really great question. I've been working out a lot. Like going to the gym has been just been really meditative for me. I love going on walks, reading, of course, reading for sure. Listening to other podcasts. It's just there's this creator on YouTube. His name is Hindsight. It's spelled like HINDZ site. And I spend every morning with Heinz and just hearing him talk about his creative flow. He's actually the one who introduced me to the Creative Act, the book that we're going to talk about today. And, like he encourages you to have your tea. So you have your tea when you listen to Heinz, and you're sitting present, reflecting on life and also what it takes to be a creative. So those are just some ways that bring me peace and joy, and meditating too. That's more of a recent practice I've been trying to integrate, but it's kind of hard to silence a brain with PTSD. But it's been really rewarding, and just sitting with my gratitude, sitting with my thoughts, and not forcing myself to move, not forcing myself to do anything, like just to be.
Being.
So, yeah.
When it comes to you, how does it make sense from your here's the thing. This is the question I always ask at this point. Does it make sense from your childhood that this is what you're doing now? You walked me through major parts of your life that it would make sense that you're doing this kind of work. But even maybe before all those losses that have played into the work you're doing today, when
Yeah.
you were much, much younger as a kid, how does who you were then as a kid reconcile to what you're doing now?
Yeah. I mean, for sure, I definitely think the common thread between all of this is writing. So when I was a kid, I would win like essay competitions. Like I have a couple bonds that I have to like cash in soon to see how much they're worth. um, from my writing competitions, and writing just has always been my way, like I guess my way of expressing myself. And then I just envisioned myself in my room. My parents will tell you, like I had my karaoke machine and I was blasting Shakira and doing the little dances and singing all of the time, singing and dancing all of the time. And then animals. I always love like the animal documentaries, Steve Irwin, or my favorite show was Zaboomafoo, which side note, I tried to explain to my sisters who are like younger Gen Z, I'm like older Gen Z, what Zaboomafoo was. And they literally looked at me like I had 5 heads. So I'm like, yeah, maybe I'm part of the older generation. I am the adult now. Like what?
No, I'm the adult in this room now, in this particular room, because I'm 17 years older than you, and I have no idea what the hell you're talking about.
Yep. I love it.
So you're in that sweet spot for knowing what that is. Your younger sisters and I have no
Yeah.
clue.
Just that, but that's like perfect segue. Like I feel like I've always just been a portal between worlds, a bridge between different things, and I always knew I wanted to do multiple things.
So
um
when you talk about the bridge between, whatever worlds you're trying to connect,
yeah.
did you see that when you were younger? Did you feel that when you were younger as a little kid, somehow, in whatever way?
Yeah, I definitely saw that when I was younger, just because, and it does start with the loss, because my father passed when I was 8 months old, so that was my origin story. So
Mm,
as a child, I didn't really get to be a child. Like I had to hold space for my mom, who was grieving my biological father who passed away. So I didn't even get
yeah.
to really be a child. Like she did the best that she could, and we had fun, and I definitely had like the normal child some memories, but a lot of it was I had to become an adult before I had to, before I got the chance to be innocent or to be a child. And so with that, I think I had to be a parent for myself, help my mom, help my family, help my community. And so being creative was just my way of expressing myself and trying to make sense of the world around me. Um, and I just loved animals too. That was just a common thing for me. Like I do have this dream of being a wildlife rehabilitator one day. So whenever I travel, like I try to go to different wildlife rehab centers or sanctuaries to like volunteer and help with animals, because that's just another way of me feeling like me and animals. I feel like we are that bridge between different worlds too. Like you just have that connection, and I've always been able to have that with animals. And I've
Yeah.
had so many throughout I've had bearded dragons. I have an exotic cat in my house, um, but yeah, so just different things that I've had since I was a kid that really I still see till this day for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and I asked that just because so many people I work with, when they finally get to the point where they feel successful or fulfilled, it's because they're back in tune with who they were.
Mm,
So many people go into a job, fitting the job description, checking all the boxes of the job description, but they forget who they are, what they want, their dreams, like what they were looking for. So I'm always after a certain point, maybe I don't know, 50 episodes in, 60 episodes in of this, I started throwing in that question of how do you reconcile your childhood to who you are now? Because I'm always curious how people think of that. Um,
mm,
just that relationship, you to your younger self, what you wanted, what you dreamed about, the wonder that you held for the world. So I
yeah.
appreciate you sharing that. All that being said, and you've shared so much, what do you consider your superpower?
Mm. I think, yeah, that's a great question because it goes hand in hand. Like, I think about too when I was in college and when I was even in corporate, like, I would always have different, what us Gen Z call side quests now, but like different side projects, side gigs. Like, I always had my main job or my main focus, but I was still doing so many other things. And I do think it boils down to me being that kid having to become an adult first, where, wow, like I would see other kids in school, like, wow, they get to grow up with their biological fathers, like they get to have a normal family, or they're not experiencing poverty and homelessness like my mom and I are. Like, I'm going to do that. Like, I'm going to figure out a way where I can have the best experience just how they are. And so I think that was core to me, just being creative and creating opportunities for myself. And I do think that my superpower, one of my superpowers is just bringing people together. Honestly, I think that's my main superpower, is like being able to be that bridge between worlds, finding common ground. And I do think like being an activist and that community organizer side of myself has helped a lot with that, because I guess the essence of it is trauma bonding. We're trauma bonding from oppression. And how are we going to build community? How are we going to rally together to make change? How are we going to inspire other people? How are we going to inspire the youth and the next generation, right? Like, these are things constantly top of mind for me. But I definitely think at the core is making my visions come to life. Are you familiar with like human design?
You brought that up during that call last week, or
Yeah,
somebody did.
yeah,
I have heard of it. I haven't done it myself.
yeah. I think it'll be
Um,
good for you if you did.
oh, I guarantee.
Yeah.
Um, what's interesting is when you're younger, you think you're gonna have your shit sorted out and figured it out by like your mid-20s. And
It's a lie.
listen, as somebody who's 17 years older than you, I can tell you right now, it's just this, and it's not a bad thing. You had a picture when you were young. This is what things are gonna be like. I just gotta get there and that's it. The goal is over, and then I'll just enjoy life from there.
Yeah.
And it's a mindset where it's just a constant journey. Like, even if you achieve one thing, like you said, those side quests, it's like always something that you want to be growing towards. So, in terms of human design, I need to get on that. I do know a few people that specialize in that kind of work, so I got to check it out.
Oh my
What
gosh.
what
Yeah. That's awesome.
What have you found out in your own exploration of human design?
I mean, I definitely want to go deeper, but from like the basics or like foundation of it all, my human design is I'm a manifesting generator. So I'm basically, and there's you can be a manifesting generator, you can be a generator, you can be a projector. There's like different categories, kind of similar to like the Clifton Strengths Finder, like your top five, whatever. But you have like a specific core human design. And so as a manifesting generator, definitely made sense when I saw that, because like I've just always been someone who's been told you have an old soul, like you've lived here before, like you've probably reincarnated so many times. And like I believe that. Like I feel like I've had 50 lifetimes in this one 29 years lifetime that I've had. But I'm able to, I just have like this incredible foresight, which is grief sense to me. Like I have this foresight where I'm able to have a vision and make it come to life. I don't know how it happened. It just happens. And then I'm able to bring other people along for the journey with me that somehow kind of makes the vision happen even more acceleratedly or more fun, helping their visions come to life too. And I think it does make sense being like an activist, right? Being on the megaphone, leading people, like huge crowds, thousands of people. I became chief of staff at 24 years old in the number one tool company in the entire world. Like I've found myself in these really high level leadership positions. And I think it's just because I have that
Mm.
foresight and able to bring people together.
So how do you it's weird. You've described it, you've explained it, but then how do you in a tight definition, how do you define grief sense?
Hmm. I can't. There's so many different takes on it. I feel like to the book that we're talking about today, The Creative Act, grief sense to me is like, as an artist, you have your art. It's up for interpretation for anyone else. Like for me, grief sense is going to take its own multiple definitions in my life. But as people interact with me, my content, like I would like for people to explore what grief sense means to them. But at the core, it's living life presently and living life as a privilege. Like, right, just being present with life, and because life is fleeting. Do everything that you can in this one life while you can, without obviously expensing your mental health. but
Yeah.
but just being present with life while we have it.
Yeah, it sounds so simple. It sounds like simple advice. It's almost cliche how often you hear it, but
Yeah.
I don't think people really it's almost like anything else. It's like you don't understand the cliche or the repetitive advice until you need it yourself, until you've experienced it yourself. Um,
Yeah. And
yeah,
that's
there's just no way to convey it, because if I tell my kids that, they're gonna be like, Yeah, sure, old man, whatever." Like,
well, yeah, and I think it's so interesting. I'm just having this like revelation in real time. I think that's why I love that creator hindsight so much, that I, listen to every day, because it's like we always have hindsight, right? We always have, oh, I should have did that. I should have did this. And I'm no stranger to that. Every time someone has died in my life, it's always like, oh man, like I wish I would have spent more time with them. I wish I would have told them how much they meant to me. I wish I would, all should have, could have, would have. And what I'm saying at Grief Sense is don't wait until you lose somebody, or don't
yeah.
wait till the very worst thing happens for you to be present, for you to share how you feel, for you to be creative, right? Because everyone thinks that we get to live this really long life. And I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but unless you're a heterosexual cis white man, right? A lot of the different nuances that we have in our communities and intersections, a lot of us don't get to live a long life. And I like most of the people that have died in my life were young. They didn't get to make it past 50. My dad died at 21 years old. My best friend died at 17, right? Like there's so many of these stories in my life that it's just like, wow, I've been forced to confront my mortality in so many different ways that I have no choice but to be present. I have no choice but to be authentically creative. I have no choice but to love myself, to be confident, to love my people, Because what the hell is the point of it all anyway, if not?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I wish people could sense that. I know they'll listen to advice, they'll want to take it, but I mean, I don't want them to experience it the same way you've experienced it with all that loss, but there's value in your story and what you can share with others. But that was my takeaway. That was my definition of grief sense, is just kind of like that sense that you have to move forward because of everything you've carried forward.
yeah,
Um
that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. That means a lot to me. Like, I'm gonna
no,
probably
yeah.
think about that later.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I mean that's what it is. Just because um from losses I've had, my dad died a couple years ago.
Mhm.
Um, you just get to a point where you do have that realization there is one life. Again, all these things are cliches. You have one life to live. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What are you going to do with it? Because people are still tolerating stuff. People are still foregoing their dreams. People are still playing it safe.
Mm, that's a whole word right there.
Like, what are you doing to really live this life? And just because you're checking the boxes, you're going to work, you're raising your family, or you're paying the bills, and you're saving for retirement, whatever it may be, whatever your story is, that doesn't mean you're living life. And I love the way that you just shared a couple minutes ago, in so many words, about not waiting till people are gone. That's the biggest thing that's ever pissed me off,
Yeah.
is when I've known somebody and they've shared something with me about the people in their lives. Like, they didn't feel like the people were there. They didn't feel whatever it was. They just felt bad about the people in their lives. And then this person passed away or was lost in whatever way. And then everybody fucking comes out of the woodwork. They post on fucking Facebook, like, this person, oh, I loved you so much. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um,
So
yeah.
so this plays into like the breaking that you like to do.
Yeah.
Um, it's not a formal rule, but I just say what's on my mind. Part of it for that reason. Tomorrow,
Exactly.
another cliche coming. Tomorrow isn't guaranteed. Why
Yeah.
are you going to hold things back that you feel you need to say, whether for your benefit or for the benefit of someone else?
Mm. And even to your point about rules in general, there's another book that I'm obsessed with. It's called U Squared by Price Pritchett. And one of the key themes of the book is like, how are we measuring our success? Like, are we measuring our success by other people's rules? Because that is what we're doing, right? We go to school, we get the degree, then we go to work, and then you work till you die. Like, what? No. So how are we measuring our lives? Like, what rules are we using? Like, someone else's rules doesn't have to be ours, right? We can make our own for what makes sense for ourselves, for our families, right? For what we want to create for our own life. And I always say too, and this is another thing that's core to grief sense, we live on a floating rock in space. So the things that someone is super serious about or super mad about, I'm just like, we're on a floating rock in space. Like, when a really bad thing happens at work, you make a mistake, you get fired, you get laid off, or someone amazing to you dies. Like, I'm literally no stranger to that. All of these traumas, like being attacked on the street, like, or even just like, those are more serious, obviously, but like even the less serious things, people stressing, they can't live without their phones, they can't, whatever it is, the myopic little minute things that gets them so mad throughout the day. And I'm just like, we're on a floating rock in space. That's literally what I tell myself, to stop taking things so personally and to not being defensive. Like, now I'm of the mindset, I don't fight anymore. I don't argue anymore. I'm like, you're right. You right. You are right. The only
Yeah.
person I struggle with that is my mom, but I'm working on it. But it's like the let them theory, right? Like, kind of just, you're right. You're living in the 3D. And for me, I'm living in the 5D. I'm living in multiple dimensions in my home. Like, I am the most Delulu person you will ever meet in your life. Like, you're here, I'm over here. Like, we're on a floating rock in space. So the three
Yeah.
things that are making you upset are just so not in my purview that, yeah. But I think it's because of this grief sense that I have. I just, I'm trying to expend my energy in the things that deserve my energy. And like we know the political climate that we're in right now with the new administration, regardless of our political views, right? Like there's a lot happening to try and get us frustrated and distracted and and I'm not buying into that. Like I'm going to
Yeah.
focus on the things that bring me joy and invest in my people and to help them do the things that bring them joy as well. That's how we win. So, yeah. I said a lot, but
No, 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 no. And I've gotten this habit where I'm always like looking around, and somebody had said when they were a guest, they're like, I can tell you're thinking about what I'm saying because you're
yeah,
just always like looking in
I love
different
it.
areas. That's all it is. It's not ignoring it. I just can't help it. But um, and I'm just kind of like scrolling through everything you said, but like what stood out,
Thinking, I love it.
no, but what stood out was just kind of like that detachment
Yeah.
where it's like, listen, I'm not gonna break the law
Yep.
and I'm gonna carry out my responsibilities and I'm gonna respect everybody.
Yep.
But again, like you said, if you can't see eye to eye with me and you want to get mad and I'm doing the best that I can and I'm following through on societal agreements, friendship agreements, it's just life is too short. It comes back to what you said.
Yeah,
You can't please everybody. Um, it depends on the relationship.
for
And
sure.
it's amazing how I think like those childhood experiences really do play into that.
Mm,
Um,
that's very fascinating, for sure.
Because I've spoken to so many people on here that had like their childhood traumas, their childhood disruptions of big T, little t, whatever it may be. Uh, and depending on what it was considered maybe an atypical childhood, right?
Mhm.
Not free and flowing, not happy go lucky where both parents are there, but there was some kind of disruption. It was atypical.
Yep.
And what comes from that is just their hypersensitivity to the world around them as they get older.
Mhm.
Because like you said, like if you don't have that atypical childhood, you don't have that life is good, that kind of free mentality. You're always kind of tense waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Mm.
And it kind of pushes you into maturity earlier than most. Like that's why I believe my beliefs, why
Yeah.
people tell you you have an old soul because you were forced to support your mom because of your dad's passing or come into that environment, knowing that you kind of had to help hold up your mom. But it's
Mhm.
just incredible how so much good work comes from loss,
Mhm.
from the atypical. But that stands out. It's just that sensitivity that I've seen from people that had the atypical childhood. Something was disrupted that kind of put their mind on pause, like looking around, realizing what life really is that young. And then when they're older, they have this kind of sensitivity to other people, their needs, and helping them and whatnot. So I don't know. It's just always fascinating to think about what comes from the hardest things in life.
Mm. I love what you said. Just something that came to mind for me is regarding sensitivity. Like, there's so much magic in being sensitive, and in our, in our culture, the way we grow up, the way we're socialized, being sensitive is like a bad thing. But I don't mean sensitive in the sense of like weakness or whatever. But
Yeah,
even that.
you can't handle it, or
But even with that, embrace being soft, embrace the things that make you tick, embrace the things that make you anxious, because clearly that's where your art is going to be. And I think everyone is an artist, and like that's literally what this book talks about. Like it's the creative act, like that's core to it. Everyone is an artist. And I think that when you are sensitive to something in your life, if you're, picking up on that, that's where your work is. What are you sensitive to? What's making you anxious? And that's where
yeah.
you should be spending your time. Um,
Mimi, one other question before we jump into the book. What does leadership mean to you? How would you define it?
Plain and simple for me, leadership is co-creation. I never really bought into the traditional definitions of leadership, and honestly, it makes me cringe and I hate it. Particularly
Mhm.
servant leadership. I think servant leadership is well-meaning and well-intending, but why is the word servant in right before leadership? Like, just never made sense to me. But really, to me, leadership is co-creation, right? Creating conditions and factors for other people to also lead with you. And
Mhm.
I don't really think it's leading people, it's leading together. So that's what leading or leadership means to me.
No, it makes sense. Now the book.
Yeah.
Why don't you introduce the book and tell me how you came across the book? What made you want to pick it up? But I got the book too. I love this book.
Ah,
I
twinsies.
love this book.
Yes, creative act. Join the movement. um, well, you know what's so interesting? I feel like at the core of this book is really spirituality. Because I noticed Rick Rubin, like, he references other authors that are authors of spiritual books. Like, he's referenced Wayne Dyer a couple of times, he wrote the foreword for Ask and It Is Given, which is another one of my favorite books. The Joe Dispenzas of the world, right? Like, there's just a lot of key spiritual themes throughout the book, but a lot of what is core to it is detachment, which we've talked about. But yeah, no, how I discovered this book was through the podcast creator Heinz, and then me and my friend watch his episodes. And my friend, his name is Mario. He also has a degree in organizational psychology, by the way. Um,
I
we
like
meet
him already.
Yeah, he's great. We meet once a week just to do like content creation, accountability, and stuff. So we've been doing this consistently for about like a year and a half now. And we both watched the episode on our own with Heinz when he introduced hindsight. And we both got the book at our next time we met. We were like, yo, you have to get this book. And we both had it. So yeah, this book is revolutionary. I'm reading it again for the second time because I just feel like when you read something, you might not receive all the messages that you're supposed to at that time. And so I feel like I'm elevating in a different way right now, and I just kind of want to digest and see if I can pick something else up that he
That's
said.
such a good point. I had somebody on here for a book I had read, and I dug out the book. I'm like, let me prep for the conversation. And I'm flipping through there, and I always have notations like
Yep.
what is really important, what's like, I don't know, a five, what's a good point. And everything that was a high priority or really important at that time that I read it, maybe 15 years prior, didn't even register to me.
Yeah.
Like, it was all everything that I found most important was completely different areas. So that just speaks to what you're saying,
Yeah.
that the way you read something today isn't gonna be the way that you read it, a year or 2 from now. This book came out, I think it was 2023, and I got it when it came out. I'm gonna read it again, and I guarantee
Yep.
just from the additional writing I've done, the additional podcasts that I've done, I'm gonna read this differently than that first go around.
Yes. Absolutely. Yes.
And yeah, before we jump into anything, let me just give a breakdown of Rick Rubin. He's a producer. He's worked with like the Beastie Boys, Jay-Z, I think Nine Inch Nails, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Johnny Cash. He it's You can't pin him to one particular genre. He'll work with anyone. And the book is broken up. It's called 78 Areas of Thoughts. The chapters are maybe 2 to 5, maybe 6 pages each, nothing crazy. And some of the examples maybe in here are like everyone is a creator, look for clues, practice, experimentation, try everything, breaking the sameness, uh, point of reference, non competition, tuning out undermining voices, expect a surprise, openness, the art of habit, let it be, why make art. So when you read this, what stood out to you the most? What hit you the most?
The biggest, I mean, it's hard to choose one, right? Because there's so many amazing teachings in here, but I would definitely say number one that takes the cake is creating without attachment to the outcome. And
That's
that's the biggest one. And I have on my wall here, I design these index cards and I color it every week with different marker colors. Anyways, one of them says consistency regardless of results or attachment to the reward, and consistency regardless of my feelings. And that to me has just been earth shattering, mind blowing, life changing. And that's how I show up every day, not just in content creation, but in everything. I think that's what's helped me not take personal interaction so personally, even though I'm working through that. It's definitely, I'm a recovering people pleaser, so it's very hard for me not to take things personally, but this book has changed my life even just personally. But of course, when it comes to writing, when it comes to social media and content creation, and just to give you like a quick snapshot of how it's impacting me on social media, I had 9,000 followers on LinkedIn in December. I'm almost at 13K right now. And that's just in less than 3 months. Like I can't tell, like this book is something right here. So
Well, what do you think it was then? You mentioned detachment. Is it just because you feel it's almost like you're unapologetically you? You're sharing instead of overthinking how someone will accept something and perceive it. You're just jumping in with what you want to share.
I think there's levels to it. I think that's, and like I say this in the kindest and most loving way to people listening, that's the bare minimum. I think we have to be unapologetically ourselves. Like I had to be that in order to even receive the greatness that was in this book. You know, like if you're not there, that's your work that you need to focus on. So once I'm unapologetically me and already sharing my story, that's been core to who I am from the get-go. I feel like I was able to receive these messages differently. Now, the second, I wouldn't say second step, right? Like it's not linear, but I do think that there's just this aspect of, how do I say it? Like, for example, right? One of the things that's helped me with my content creation, and I think this would be helpful for anyone who's really trying to share their stuff on social media right now. If they're trying to become a speaker, they're trying to become a coach, consultant, whatever it is, right? But for me right now, I'm like a creator. Like I'm in my content creator bag right now in my era and like getting brand deals and really locking into the creator economy right now.
Mhm.
So this book was super timely. How I view, like, say we get engagements on a post, right? If I get, I don't know, 20 likes on a post, right? I'm going to consider that a breakout room or a breakout session in a Zoom call or a breakout session at a conference. If I get between 50 to 75 people, okay, that's like a workshop. I have a whole bunch of people in my workshop right now. Cool. Oh, sorry, let me back up. No, breakout session is like, I have like 10 to 20 people. Then my workshop is going to be between like 20 and 50 people. Then my keynote, if I'm having a keynote audience, if I'm speaking to a whole bunch of people, okay, if I'm getting 75 likes to 100 likes or even more than that, like that's a keynote audience right there. So reading this book, it doesn't really say that in this book, but that is a revelation that I've had to stop creating with attachment to things, right? So whether you are putting your content out there on social media or not, you are still impacting people, whether it's 3 likes, 10 likes, 50 likes, 100, right? Those are people in a room, right? Like 20 people in a room, that's not light.
Yeah.
Like people complain on social media if they get 100, 300, 500 views, even 1,000 views. Like I've broken that for myself now consistently. I get like probably 3K views bare minimum now, and I'm just like, that's 3,000 people in a room, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that, just thinking about it like that has just changed everything for me and just helped me, yeah, like not create with attachment, and there's so many other ways that shows up in my life, but I think that's the biggest like tangible lesson I can share right now.
So why don't you, if you could, why don't you flip open the book and maybe
Yeah.
point out 3 different areas that stand out, um, chapters or whatever, and your takeaways from that, from what he shared, if you could.
Yeah, well, since I'm rereading it, I wanted to share,
Yeah.
there's on page 183, it starts the chapter called Breaking the Sameness.
Mm.
And so I have like a whole bunch of things highlighted in the subsequent pages, but um, this part really reminded me of, right, when you're in your 8th grade science class, and then as you continue to take science throughout high school, you're in your like, you're in your science classes and you learn about experiments where you have controlled variables and independent variables. And this chapter kind of reminded me of that, like, sometimes we ask ourselves, how is what we're learning when we're in school going to impact us as an adult? Like, are we going to use this math? Are we going to use this lesson in science? And I do think it does. Like, it shows up in different ways. And this chapter brought that to life for me, where it's like you have to, in order to break the sameness, you have to change the environment, right? Like, what are the different conditions in your environment that you can change to make you more creative, or more inspired? So for me, I work from home a lot, right? Sometimes I need to get out of my own way, and I'll go to a cafe, or I'll go to different cafes and just change my environment. And like, my content is better, my writing is better. There's another thing here that says change the context, right? Like, there's, what can you do when there's a different backstory? Like,
Mhm.
if you put yourself in the shoes of your audience or your clients or the people that you're trying to impact, what are their pain points? What are their stories? How can you approach your content from that perspective, right? So just breaking the sameness, trying different things, um, to switch it up a little bit.
Yeah, can I jump in with one?
Yeah,
That
please.
that piggybacks off of that one. This one is in the temporary rules chapter. The quote is from page 211,
Okay.
and the quote is, "In exploring new horizons, you may very well lose some fans. New fans may also appear. Whatever the case, the decision to limit your work to the familiar is a disservice to both yourself and the audience. The energy of wonder and discovery can get lost when treading the same ground over and over again."
Wow.
So, I mean, it's just incredible how, from what I've seen, again, with clients in my own life, in the life of friends that are kind of on that journey, right? They're trying to get better, they're trying to improve, they're trying to build their skills. It's amazing how much in life, if we go by the script, we're chasing something on the outside. We're trying to we go to college, we get good grades, we go into corporate, whatever it may be, and then you stay faithful to who you are. It doesn't quite feel right. In some instances, it just feels dirty.
Mm,
It doesn't jibe with your soul and what you want to create or what you want to be or what you want your legacy to be.
mm.
So it's incredible that
Wow.
you can
That's so
keep
good.
that. What's that?
That's so good. Like, that's so good. So powerful.
It's just that's what stood out to me is if you go through the script of life, go to college, get a job, had a family, yada 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 yada. And I'm not saying those things are bad. Shit, I did it myself.
Right.
But there was something missing. So it's like, what else? Nothing against my family or anything, but there was something calling to me.
Mm,
So that's what I want people to recognize is even if you're living in that script, you're doing all the things, you're checking all the boxes, whatever it may be. Some people feel an unease and
mm,
they don't know what it is. They don't know that you're not using your heart to its best application, I guess. You're not dreaming or executing on your dreams the way that you should.
yeah.
That kind of stuff makes me think out of all the people that think that they're getting it done, but they still don't feel quite right and they don't know to look for it or they don't know that they have permission to look for it, whatever it may be.
Right. Yeah. Powerful. It's so true. And like, there's so much magic in the mundane too, right? It's finding the magic, and it's finding, you know, another thing. Rick Rubin says, I just flipped to it and I lost the page, but it basically said like, you can create out of the most ordinary thing and make it extraordinary. Like, and we even talked about it in the episode so far, is like regarding grief sense. Like, we hear these cliches all of the time, but unless you go through like a certain experience, you might not get that message. But what I'm saying is, don't wait for that experience to happen to get that message. How you hear these cliches all of the time. Clearly, there's some truth to it, right? Like, what is that truth for you? And what is your charge, or what's your action that you have to take as an artist, as a creative, as someone who's an expert in your field? If you're a product manager, if you're an executive director, like, we are all artists, we are all creators, we are creating every single day, right? And so it's how we do that, that I think matters, and how we're co-creating with the people around us to do the same thing.
So what else? We'll get into a couple more, but what else changed in you from reading this book? Aside from maybe creating the content that amplified your audience, what did you feel change in you, or maybe there were specific actions that you took? What other steps? What else came from that read?
Well, another thing here too is, right, we always hear about like patience, right, and taking things one step at a time. And, I do think that there's this connection, and I mentioned to the other book that I read often is called U Squared by Price Pritchett. Another core element that was in that book that I also see in the creative act is just this sense of sometimes it can happen a lot faster than you think, and that does happen when you are consistent. And you could also be consistently bad at something or like consistently unintentional that will lead to unintentional results. But if
Yeah.
you are consistently intentional and being mindful of the work that you're putting out there, mindful of of what you're doing every single day, it can happen a lot faster than you think. And so how I a revelation that's kind of appeared to my mind after reading this book too is how I break it out too. Is like, okay, there's the be realistic people, and then there's the delusional people. And I think the delusional is the good things. So be realistic is, that's the take one step at a time people. And sometimes you need that. Sometimes there's going to be seasons in your life that call you to have to be able to do one step at a time. Like I know that more than anyone with having all of this loss. Like there's periods in my life where all I can do is literally focus on putting one step in front of the other. But once like being, when you can't afford to be in flow, right? When you're not in that flow state. But there's going to be moments that are going to be calling you to build on that momentum, and you're going to be able to have the mental fortitude and capacity and will and inspiration to do it. And I think that's where I am in now. I'm in that state of flow. I'm in that momentum. And I feel like that brings me to like the be delulu people, where it's like you're taking multiple meaningful steps at a time, right? And then I feel like that is what leads to getting to your result a lot faster than you may think. And there is just that core sense of being patient for sure. Like it's only a matter of time. How can it not happen? Like you're doing the steps, you're doing the things that you have to do, but it's being really mindful of like that self-talk too. Like you can't be a negative self-talker. Like you just can't. If you are, then it's not going to happen. How can you expect something positive and amazing and the thing you've been wanting to happen so much, but you're beating yourself down the entire time? Like there's no way it's gonna happen for you. So anyway, yeah, this book
No,
is
but that's good because greatness was another chapter, if you will.
yep,
On page 216, there's a quote, or he says, fear of criticism, attachment to a commercial result, competing with past work, time and resource constraints, the aspiration of wanting to change the world, and any story beyond, I want to make the best thing I can, whatever it is, are all undermining factors in the quest for greatness. Instead of focusing on what making this will bring you, focus on what you contribute to this art to make it the best it could possibly be with no limitation.
yeah, powerful.
Yeah. And before I forget, I took this other book too. I don't know if you've read it. Um Big Magic.
I've heard of it. I haven't been able to read it yet.
You haven't been able that to me is like obviously she's a writer. Elizabeth Gilbert. She wrote Eat, Pray, Love. Um
It's down so I can buy it today.
you're a writer and have an appreciation for this Rick Rubin book. That is like the writing specific equivalent of this book, I believe.
Oh, awesome.
Um, but even if you're not a writer, it's kind of like that same mentality, like the kind of mindset that you have to put into it. That it's not like the how you're producing or the tools that you need. It's more like your mindset. It's more where your inspiration comes from. It's more about looking for it. I
Yeah.
think we wait so long in life because we think it's going to hit us in the face or it's going to smack us around the idea, but you have to go out and look for it. So I highly recommend that book. Somebody recommended it to me and I got it all marked up. I got it all
Gosh,
marked
I can't
up.
wait. Thank you for
Um,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, of course. How about one more? Another chapter that might stand out to you.
for sure. I'm gonna go to one of the more beginning ones.
Sure.
So I remember reading this one. This is on page 77, but one of the key things that he said. Well, the name of the chapter is Make It Up. He says, what is the part? Oh, all art is a work in progress. It's helpful to see the piece we're working on as an experiment, one in which we can't predict the outcome. Whatever the result, we will receive useful information that will benefit the next experiment. So that's on page 78. But basically, just a lot of us are really making it up as we go. And we think as adults, like we have it all figured out. And like to your point, like I thought I'm turning 30 at the end of this year. I thought by 30 I would have multiple properties under my name, that I would already be married, like travel the world, like, you know, and I have done some things. I am engaged, so I'm on my way there. I'm, doing the things, but regarding art and creation and just this thinking about careers, I've had a very non-traditional career path because I decided to make it up as I go. I was like, you know what? I worked in corporate. I learned so much from corporate. I'm so grateful for my experiences that I
Mhm.
had in corporate America. But I'm just ready for change. I'm just ready to have a different life, a different story. I want to share a different story to the next generation, to my future kin. So I think a lot of that is making it up as you go, being willing to do that. But then when it actually comes to doing the work, it's what can you do to switch it up, like we talked about a little bit earlier, but how can you change your story as you go? How are you defining yourself? How are you Yeah, and I do want to say this is different than I forget the woman's name, it's escaping me, but it's different than the woman who has the TED Talk on fake it till you make it. I think this is different because being able to fake it till you make it is a privilege that a lot of people that look like you and I can't do all the time. It is a privilege to do that. Um, and I do think Rick Rubin is an author that does have a lot of privilege, but I think he acknowledges it through the different artists he's been able to work with. And he's just seen all different walks of life, and he's very humble in that way. So that's why I appreciate him. But in this sense of making it up as you go, it's like sometimes you just have to believe that you're deserving and worthy of it before it's even in your existence. Like you have to believe that, yeah, that you are deserving of it and it can happen. You just have to be willing to be open to it, right? And I think a lot of that too, which is another point Rick Rubin talks about, is like being an observer of your experience, which I do think is another way of being detached or practicing detachment. But how could life look like if we are an observer of our experience and we're not reacting to every single thing
Mm.
that's happening?
Yeah.
And that has also helped my writing become a lot better. It's also helped me work on teams better, right? Like not every single thing requires a reaction. And all of us are making it up as we go. But yeah, just some thoughts there too. But
No, I like that. Just because obviously, if you're an artist, if you're a writer and that's your life, that's all you're doing, if you're a music artist, whatever it may be, and it's your way of making a living, obviously, you have to kind of determine what's gonna make you the money that you need, whatever it is. But, I think just in general, we get so caught up in what people are gonna expect, and we limit
yeah,
ourselves.
yeah.
And here's the thing, nothing that we've talked about here is ever taught in schools.
Oh, yeah, that's a whole nother word. But we could have a whole conversation on that. Yeah,
So we're talking about this book, we're talking about the work that we've done that's tapped into that kind of mindset of this book. We've talked about the writing and the content creation, all of that that helps us find our form of flow.
yeah,
And yet none of that and fulfills us the most. You know, we went to school, we got the corporate job, we got the steady paycheck, and yet that didn't fulfill us the way that tapping into our inner selves is
yeah,
fulfilling for us and creating for other people, sharing with other people. much in the same way Rick Rubin talks about, much in the same way Elizabeth Gilbert talks about in her book, and the other authors that you've spoken about. That's the incredible part. That
Yeah.
tapping into yourself to get the best out of yourself is taught nowhere in school.
Yeah.
And like you said, that is another entirely different conversation, but it's mind-blowing that finding yourself and your unique self and bringing that greatness to the world is not it's not really harnessed, it's not really spoken about at school. It's incredible.
Yeah, and a lot of that is it's tuning into our inner frequency. There's so much noise. There's so much noise. People saying gurus saying do this and do that, and everyone is making it up as they go. They are doing what works for them in their lives and their family, and you need to do what's best for yourself and your family and your life. And with that is just tuning into your inner frequency, and a lot of that for me is helping. I think it's naturally happening because people are seeing how often and how bold and I'm just very vocal on LinkedIn. I'm very transparent. I'm very direct. I say the things that a lot of people are probably afraid to say, but it's, and people will get that from my content. I get that all the time. But it's just like having the courage to turn your story and your pain points into content, into sharing your story on social media, into sharing your story on stage. Like everyone is capable of doing that. Everyone is capable of doing that. If you are posting on LinkedIn, you're a content creator. You might not be an influencer, you might not be doing, getting the different angles and going to different, doing this as like a business or a way of income, but everyone is a content creator. And when I say that to people, they're like, oh, wow, like I've never thought of it that way. But you are, right? And so it's just being mindful of how can you tune into your inner frequency, because sometimes I always get, oh, but I don't know what to talk about on LinkedIn, or I don't know what to post about. Yeah, you do. Just how when you're getting ready for job interviews or getting ready to onboard a new client, or have a new coach, like just the example of having an interview, for example, right? You have to come up with maybe like, I am a director of career development. So I always tell my students, have like 5 to 7 examples handy of, a time you worked on a team, on a time work in school, a group project, whatever it is. You're going to have like core examples from your professional life or your student experience or your life in general that you're going to be able to pull from to help you get this opportunity, to help you build community. It's the same thing. The way you're preparing for an interview and getting your stories ready, it's the same way with content. You have so many life experiences that you can pull from, that you can connect to a book that you read, an article that inspired you, a recent interaction at a cafe or at the grocery store. Like everything is content these days.
That
But
is true.
how are you tuning in to your inner frequency to turn it into content and to share your story?
That's
So,
absolutely true. I was having a conversation with somebody, I think on the previous episode I recorded, and I spoke about comedy and kind of like that third eye, where comedians
mm,
they have a sensitivity to that.
yep,
The reason we laugh hysterically at comedians is because we know what they're saying. They're not saying anything that's mind blowing. They're just pointing out what happens to all of us.
yeah,
And, everybody has their own delivery, but just kind of like that third eye sensitivity.
yep,
They see what's going on in front of them and they have the wherewithal to capture it and to regurgitate it to their audience. But they're not doing anything that is shocking because we laugh at it because we can relate to it. We've
right,
seen it, but we don't have that wherewithal to catch it. And again, what you were saying about, well, I don't know what to say. There's so many people on LinkedIn sharing ideas. And think about how many thoughts we have in the day, tens
mm,
of thousands of thoughts, I think it is. When you're reading something, when you're having a conversation, there's always something that pops up in your head as a flag in that conversation, in that article, in that movie, in that show, whatever it may be. But
yeah,
again, where's your wherewithal?
hmm,
How can I craft this into a lesson that I can learn for later? Typically, we just experience it and it just kind of comes and goes.
right,
But
right.
we have to capture that idea. And that big magic talks about that too, kind of like the muse and what's going to come to you and receiving things. I think you'll love the book.
I love that. I can't wait to read it.
I'm telling you, I know you're going to love the book because it plays along the same lines. But There's
Yeah.
that idea of the muse, and she speaks. One example she gives is a book idea where
Mm,
it kind of came to her and she's like, eh. And then like whatever period later, somebody wrote that exact book.
yeah.
And she's like, I didn't write any notes down. Nothing was stolen from me,
Yeah.
but the idea came to me. And at that point I said no. So the idea floated to someone else.
Yeah.
So there's this thing like when you have those impulses, when you have that gut
Act
feeling,
on them.
listen to it, that awareness.
Act on them. Yep. Uh, I love this. I could talk about this all day, every day.
All right.
Gives me so much joy.
Mimi, and wrapping up, what are you up to these days that you want to share? Anything that I might not have asked? Anything you want to put out there?
Yeah.
Floor's yours.
Thank you for that space. Well, one thing that's definitely bringing me so much joy and fun and was completely unexpected is I'm helping my cousin open up her cafe in Hartford, Connecticut. It's called Hasta Luego Friends. And we've already been doing this for the past year and a half, where we cater coffee to different events, and we turned a vintage mobile trailer. It was like a old, like, one of those old like hippie vans. We turned into a mobile coffee bar. So that's been really fun and really cool. But we just got the incredible opportunity to open our own brick and mortar. And it's one of those historic homes in Hartford, right in our hometown. And it's just been such a blessing, because, our family has been through back-to-back tragedy and loss. And this just feels like a really big win for us, and we're all doing it through the love of coffee and a lot of coquito, which for my Latinos out there and Puerto Ricans, our special is build your own coquito latte. So you can add coquito to anything you want. Matcha, go
Oh,
crazy.
wow.
So that's been so much fun, and also I'm creating a lot of content with that. We were just on the news. So things are moving and grooving, and that was completely unexpected career moment. So there's that. Another thing too is we'll definitely follow us on Instagram. It's Hasta Luego Friend. And another thing, especially for those listening in, if you would like to share your story on GriefSense, I do have a newsletter that I launched recently. It's called The Sala, which in Spanish means living room. It's really my way of this being our internet living room, since we all can't be together all of the time. But just holding space for people to talk about grief, mental health, work challenges, whatever it is, because I am really part of that movement on humanizing that side of LinkedIn, of us talking about mental health and really just the things that matter, the things that make us human. So yeah, that invitation is there. Get connected with me on LinkedIn, and definitely listen to my podcast if you or someone is grieving and can really use some support. It is about grief, but at the core of it's actually about life, how to live presently, how to create all of the things we talked about today, how to be in your flow. And it's been really just a amazing journey and adventure. So would love to have you part of it. So yeah,
Amazing. And again, Mimi and I covered The Creative Act, The Way of Being by Rick Rubin. Mimi, thank you for sitting down with me for this conversation.
thanks for having me. This was amazing. Can every one of my conversations be like this today and this week?
That's what I do. That's what I deliver. I love it.
Magic of John Jaramillo. That is his magic.
Hey,
That's his.
man, conversations, honest conversations, saying it how it is, paying attention to what we're doing, not doing, what we're learning from one conversation to the next, bringing it forward. I mean, just that little tidbit about comedians and maybe the way that I see them, and it came from this other conversation. Maybe you'll use that in some other capacity, right? How we learn from each other, what I gain from you, from your story, from your losses.
Yeah.
They're your losses, but they're my lessons, just in appreciation for what you have. Um,
That's so sweet. Thank
it's
you.
just incredible. I think that's an amazing message to have, is just from this loss, just this growing sensitivity for what the world is and what it can be, and don't lose it all completely. That, again, cliche after cliche, life is short.
Yeah.
Like, get fucking started now,
Life is worth
because it's,
living. Hmm.
don't just sit there and wait. So in any case, so here's the creative act, and then this is the other book that I mentioned, Big Magic, Highly recommend them both. If there's anything that I missed in the conversation with Mimi, anything you think I should have asked, please let me know. I'll reach out to her, see what kind of insights, guidance, additional knowledge I can get. In the meantime, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.
Adios.